So we want to be the kind of team that allows us to win championships, not just be a team. If you're like me, I grew up in Los Angeles, California, so naturally I'm a Laker fan. And so it's hard these days watching the Lakers play because they're not equipped anymore as a high-performance team to be able to win championships. And so when it comes to what we want to talk about with these high-performance teams, understand something, that the question of the day, or even before we talk about the question of the day, my title here is that when we're all in, we win. And that's basically a poker term, because I live in Las Vegas. We have in Vegas the World Championship of Poker. Anybody familiar with that? And so with the World Championship of Poker, when you watch poker players, once they're starting to dwindle their chips and they feel like they might be on their last rope, what they do is they do this with their hands. They put it all around the chips that they have left, and they push them forward. And that's a sign or an insignia that they are all in. To say that I'm all in means that I'm going to use all the resources that I have left at my disposal to keep me competitive in this game. It means that, from our perspective, that I am going to put my mind, my energy, my thoughts, my time into what it is that we're doing as a team. And so, as I was saying, the question of the 21st century that's being asked in academia, is being asked amongst the different think tanks concerning the 21st century is, how do we work together? Okay? How do we work together? It's a question that has become very prevalent from the standpoint that we've reached a tipping point, as Malcolm Gladwell would say, concerning our society, where what used to be black and white is now gray, where what we used to think meant high performance, now that's changed somewhat. As Jamil said, now we've been forced, especially since the fiscal crisis of 2008, to do more with less. Can it be done? Sure. It's a daunting task. Nevertheless, it can be done with the right thoughts, strategies, as well as the information plus the inspiration. Because many times if you were asked to, hey, we need you to double your output, would you change the way that you budget? Would you change the way that you market? Would you change some of your strategies? You could, but the truth is most of the doubling of your input is found in your people. It's found in the people. Studies show that right now, most employees are only doing enough work to get by and not get fired or reprimanded, that they leave the rest of their discretionary effort on the table. So the question for team leaders is, how do we tap into that discretionary effort? Okay? How do we get them to give me more of what they're leaving on the table? Well, what we have to do is get them to buy in, to become all in. And so to be all in, we have to be able to put before them not only the vision, but the why of what it is that we do. That's what our vision does. It tells us why we do what we do. And so when we talk about these high-performing teams, the key indicator of high-performing teams, when you look at them, over 1,000 successful teams that had been observed, the thing that sticks out in terms of high performance is what we call deep social bonds. Deep social bonds, meaning that I care about the people who I work with, the people who are on my team. Okay? Studies show that if I have a friend that is on my team or at my workplace, that I am 30% more engaged, which translates into 17% more productivity. If that friend is a boss or a supervisor, you can add 50% to those numbers. See, when it comes to the people stuff, a lot of times we've tried to leave that off the table. We want to deal with the stuff that we can measure, okay, where we can put a number to. But we have to understand that nothing happens without the people. If I don't have an engaged team, then I don't have the success or somebody to help me move my organizational vision forward. Are you with me? Okay? So we have to have these deep social bonds, but how do we do that? How do we do that? How do we create these deep social bonds? Does anybody right now, or can you think of a time in a place where you worked where you had a supervisor, a boss, or a team leader who cared deeply about your success? Raise your hand if that's you. Okay? What are some of the characteristics or attributes that went along with that person? What did they say? What did they do? How did they behave? Anybody? She encouraged me. Okay? Big. Why? How many times do you feel encouraged? Many times you have people who are on your team. Some of these people are what we call our inner circle. Others are what we call constituents. They're just there for a while, the ride. They're scaffolding, meaning that they're going to be there because of what the cause is, but they're not there for you. Okay? So when it comes to them encouraging me, sometimes people will leave your team and you might take that personally. Well, it's not about you. It was about they wanted what they wanted, and when you cease to be able to offer that for them, it was time for them to go. Other people, because you didn't encourage them along the way, they said, well, she doesn't really care about me, or he doesn't care about me, and that's going to cause my engagement to suffer. Anybody else? What allowed you to believe that they cared about your success? Jamil? That they were honest, right? That they didn't just tell me what I wanted to hear, that they told me the truth, okay? Good. And so when it comes to high-performance teams, two other key indicators pop up. Those are candor and accountability. Candor and accountability. Because let's deal with accountability first. Most times when we think about accountability, and this is what we suffer with, especially in the government sector, is being able to hold people accountable. As a matter of fact, they said to fire somebody in the state of Nevada takes an act of Congress because you're going to be grieved so many times and those kind of things. And so sometimes you get people who are disengaged who say, what are you going to do to me? And so the thing is once again, to tap into that discretionary effort, we have to find systems and ways to hold people accountable. Now, here's the twist on this. Most times when we think about accountability, we think about it from the superior to the subordinate. However, what we see on high-performance teams is that communication typically, well, let's deal with the average team. The average team, typically, communication goes from the team member up to the team leader, back to the team members. 70% of communication happens that way on average teams. Then only 30% of the communication is from peer to peer. However, it's reversed on high-performance teams. Good morning. On high-performance teams, you have 70% of the communication peer to peer. And then only 30% goes from peer or team member to the superior or to the team leader. And so what does that do for the team leader? It allows them to take some of the brunt off their shoulders in terms of what they have to be responsible and accountable for. But what it also does is it allows the team members to have more ownership in what it is that is the mission of our organization. If not, people begin to operate in silos. And when people are operating in silos and they feel like I'm only responsible for my patch, just this, okay? Can you pitch in with this? Not my job. That's his job, right? That's a problem. And so we have to reverse that and be able to create the culture whereby people feel a sense of ownership and they're willing to communicate peer to peer more than they do even from team member to team leader. That only happens when we have a culture of inclusiveness, where we've cultivated it so that we can have that candor that I'm talking about, where I can say what's on my mind. How many of you have been in a meeting or been in a room with people who are on your team, but the real conversations doesn't really start until somebody leaves? Yeah, see, that's a problem. Okay? That's a problem when I don't feel like I can say what needs to be said until so-and-so leaves the room. That means that the team leader has not cultivated an environment where people feel like they can say what's on their mind and be able to contribute positively to the organization. Because once we're able to do this, when we have candor and accountability, when I feel like other people on my team have my back, when we understand these deep social bonds that are necessary for high-performance teams, when we have that, that brings in empathy and forgiveness. See, it's easier for me to empathize and forgive people who I have a deep social bond with. It's hard for me to forgive and empathize with people who I don't. As a matter of fact, what do we mean by empathy? I was driving down the street in Las Vegas, and I was coming past a hospital, and somebody came out of the hospital driveway and just cut me off. And when they cut me off, I was upset. I was mad, angry, right? Don't know the guy, right? You know how you do when somebody cuts you off, you try to drive up next to him so you can look over there and let him know. And so right before I get up to his window, I look over in the gentleman's car, and he takes off his glasses and he breaks down and starts crying. Remember, He just left the hospital. So what probably took place in the hospital? Yeah, he probably received some bad news, maybe about a loved one. Did that change the way I felt about him at that time? Absolutely, unless I'm a real jerk, right? Right. It definitely changed. And so another characteristics of high-performing teams is what we get that empathy and forgiveness when we struggle together. Okay? When I know you and I know what's going on in your life, when we have a bond together, I'm more apt to forgive you when you don't meet the goal, when you show up a little late, right? I'm holding you accountable because I care about your success as well as mine. I've decided that I'm not going to allow you to fail because you're on my team and we have a bond. See, this is what teamwork and team building is about. It's about the people. You don't do business as a title, okay? You don't do business, even the places that you do business personally. It's not you doing business with Walmart or some company or some organization. It's you doing business with the people who are in that organization. And your ability to build rapport and to connect with them will make sure or ensure that your outcome will be more favorable than it would if you treated them as strangers. How many of you right now feel like you know the people who are on your team? That you have a deep social bond with them to the degree that you care about their success? We have a few. Okay, with that in mind, let's do an exercise. I see some people finishing up their food. And so with this exercise, I need you to stand up. Yes, indeed. Now I need you to partner up. Stand next to somebody. Just two, just a partner. John, can you come right here with this young lady? Okay, good. Now, this is what you're going to do. You're going to turn back to back. Back to back. Now what you're going to do, I need you to raise your hand if you're going to be partner A. Partner A, just one of you, raise your hand. Okay? 1A, okay? So, by deductive reasoning, the other person is going to be partner B. We understand that, right? Okay, good. Now, I want both of you, when I say go, you are going to, you can put your hands down, okay? Is that when I say go, you are going to change or alter 3 things about your physical appearance. You understand? You're going to change or alter 3 things about your physical appearance. Clothes, might be anything that you change. Questions? When I say go, everybody will. Let's begin now. Okay. Looks like we're just about done. At this time, I want you to turn back around and face your partner. Partner A, I want you to identify the 3 things that partner B changed. Go. All right. We'll take 15 more seconds. Okay, and stop. Now, we're going to switch. Partner B, I want you to identify the 3 things that partner A changed, and go. Okay. Once you're finished, have your seats. Have your seats. Have your seats. Good. Okay. Now, with this exercise, what lessons did we learn there? Any volunteers? Your name? Yes. Marva, what did we learn there? That we don't pay as much attention, right? Because when we talk about these deep social bonds that we have to have, how many of you work on a team where you've noticed that somebody's withdrawing or pulling away, right? But the moment you start to notice it, it may have already begun months ago. Okay? So we start to learn that the people who are in my vicinity, we call them with us, but they're not with us because you haven't been paying attention to the little things, the details about them, because you haven't been as invested in their success as you probably should be as a leader or peer to peer. For each team member to do this with one another. Because when you try this same activity with a mother and a son, with two young lovers who are engaged, guess what? 100% of the time they get it. Why? Because they're watching all the time. They're paying attention. They're invested in the success of that other individual. Okay? And so once we bring our level of attentiveness up to a place where we actually care about the people that are next to us, then we get more of that discretionary effort that is being left on the table. Okay? Because now the theory of reciprocity is at work, where I feel like John cares about me. Jamil cares about me. I can't let him down. He won't let me fail. He won't let me not live up to my potential. We good so far? Okay, good. So let's get into this PowerPoint really quickly with the time we have left. So as I said, we were talking about vision earlier because, see, the stuff we're talking about here on the PowerPoint is more theoretical, but it doesn't mean anything if we don't have the people stuff first. Okay? And so the first thing is, what? What is it that your organization does, your team does? This is the vision, okay? The vision, it is the why we do what we do. How many people on your team right now can say or recite your team mission or your organizational mission? Don't raise your hand. Okay? Okay, first it's the what? It's the who and the how. So what does our team do? Next, for whom does the team perform the function? Right? Who do we do it for? Last, how does the team go about doing this? When we answer these three questions, what we have is a mission. Okay? It's why we do what we do. That when I don't feel like it, I don't feel like showing up, when somebody has ticked me off, right? And I want to give them a piece of my mind. And keep in mind, we don't have all that much mind to be given away anyway, right? And so instead, I have to remember what the mission is. And so when we come to the stages of team development, many of you, this is a college, and so therefore I'm sure you're familiar with this theory. This is from a man named Tuckman. Tuckman developed this theory in the 60s, dealing with the Navy and military, finding out what it is it takes teams to come together and what are some of the stages of development. And many of you might be in one of these stages right now. Those 4 stages, according to Tuckman, are forming, storming, norming, and performing. Has anybody heard this before? Okay, good. Good. So when it comes to the formation stage, at that time you have a lot of excitement, okay? Meaning that somebody was not on your team, now they are. And so their choice to come onto the team meant that they were persuaded or they had a personal reason or unction to come onto the team. They're excited, okay? What we call the honeymoon phase. Glad to be there, excited. And then there's some anxiety that comes along with that because I'm anxious to know, if I'm a new member to the team, of what is this going to entail for me in the future? What role am I going to play? How will this work for me? Okay? Then we get the testing. How many have a new team member that is testing the limits and testing the boundaries to find out what they can do, how far they can take it, or maybe even what they might be able to get away with? Absolutely, right? And what I want you to understand is what they are doing is completely normal. Completely normal. But it's up to us to keep reminding them of the mission. and why we do what we do. And what we're seeing here is in this formation stage, in the forming, we want to make sure that we get everybody in the right seat. Because the interesting thing about high-performing teams is talent is not a dictator of winning. Did you know that? What the British government does is that they send their best performing military people to Mount Everest to climb. What they found is that after they do this, whoever is the best of teams of 10, they take that individual and put them on what's equivalent to a SWAT team for us. What they found is that these guys, when they come together, typically don't do well when they're together, even though they're the best of their particular units. Why? Because we need the right people in the right space. Just because you're talented doesn't mean that you are entitled to anything on our team. Okay? We need the people who fit with our vision and with our mission that are going to help us push it forward. We find that out here partly in the forming stage. Then there's dependence, and the key contributor or the key predictor of any team or high performance team is trust. How many people can you go to on your team when you don't have all the details figured out and say, just trust me on this? If they say, it's you, Jamil, then I'll trust you. They say, it's you, John, then I trust you. And we've developed something there in a bond whereby you've produced in the past, and they're at the place where, hey, I decided to come onto this team, you're the leader, and I trust what you're saying and what you're doing, I'm with you. Okay? And so some of the questions that new team member might be asking is, do I want to be part of this team? It sounded good at first when they came to recruit me. I thought it was good when I filled out the application and everything looked well. But now I'm seeing some things, as we say, everybody a lot of people can work in the restaurant, but everybody can't work in the kitchen. Okay? When you get behind the scene and see the stuff behind the stuff that makes the machine work, sometimes people say, oh, I didn't know this and I didn't know that. I don't know if I still want to be a part. Do I want to be a part of this team? What they call that is the law of diminishing return or diminishing intent, meaning that I intended to go all the way. But as I move forward, my intent is diminishing. What we find is that a lot of people have the intent, but they don't have the extent. Okay? Next question is, will I be accepted as a team member? Who is the leader, and is the leader competent? See, when we talk about will I be accepted, that's key. That, once again, comes back to the leader being able to cultivate the environment where we have candor, accountability, where we understand that we have an inclusive environment, where we know that the only way we get innovation on the team is by people feeling included. What is innovation? It's being able to have better processes and more productivity without it costing us more. Okay? Innovation. And that happens when we understand that everybody's included. So is the team leader competent? Hope yes. Okay, good. And so the next stage is the storming stage. When we get into the storming stage, here we see that in storming, it's resistant to different approaches, because when I came on the team, I said, I'm with that. I'm with that cause, and I'm talented. I have some ideas and some strategies. I'm going to make that happen. However, when you have many people who are talented, they believe that their approach is the only approach that's going to work. They believe that life and teamwork is a zero-sum game. Okay? When I mean zero-sum, they believe that, hey, if for me to win, somebody else has to lose. And that's not true when it comes to high-performing teams. Let's see. I need 2 volunteers to come to the front. Can I get 2 volunteers? Or nobody wants to move and be a part of this. Okay, thank you. What's your name? Come on, Sybil. One more person. There she is. Give them a hand for me. Now, watch this. What I want you to do is to hold hands this way. Okay, almost like you know how the guys, they give that, right? They're shaking hands, right? Just right there, right? Now, the goal of this game is you want to touch her heart with your fist. You want to touch her heart with your fist. You understand? When I say go, you're both going to try to do this. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Oh, look at them. I think you can have your seats. I think that they have seen that before. And the thing is that what we see many times when people have the thought process or the belief that it's a zero-sum game, they'll stand there in this position, pushing and pushing back and forth, trying their best to overpower the other individual. And so what Sybil was able to do, what's your name? And Denise were able to do, they were able to win together, right? By both being able to allow the heart to be touched by their team member. You see that? Okay, good. Sharp attitude changes. The person who seemed like they were on fire at first, all of a sudden now, they don't smile anymore. They seem glum. They want you to know that something is wrong. And many times we ignore them or avoid them, but we need to engage them and pick up on that signal. It's just called being the bigger person. A lot of times we don't want to be the bigger person because it means that I'm going to get kicked in my behind, right? However, being the bigger person is necessary if you are leading teams and even part of the team, because you are a leader on the team whether you have the title or not. Agreed? Okay, good. Then we see competitiveness and defensiveness begins to set in, and tension and disunity is happening in the storming stage. It's raining at this time on our team. Sometimes we're going to see who's going to be around and who's not in this stage. When we start to weed out the wheat from the chaff, many times it happens right here in this stage. It does not mean that these are bad people. It just means that this might not be the right place for them. Okay? Good. Questions that are asked there is, how do I seek my autonomy, right, in the storming stage? Because now I'm trying to win. How much control will I have over others? Anybody have any controlling people on their teams? You don't have to say anything. I know they're there. Okay. How do I support for the support of individuals? Where can I fit in? I just want my piece of this pie. And who supports me? How many of you know that the more you support others, the more support you're going to get? Right? Sometimes people have that backwards, that they're out there trying to curry favor and do things that they think are going to cause people to like them. The best thing you can do is offer support to other people. Good. How much influence do I have? And we'll talk about that here shortly. Next stage is the norming stage. Okay? In the norming, we've made it through storming. Those who are still with us are with us, and now we're starting to settle in. Here we see that we have some increased satisfaction. I know what to expect here. Now, I've been through the battle and through the trenches with these other people that are on my team, and I've actually developed some respect for them. Isn't that interesting? That now I respect some people who I was fighting with during the storming stage. That's what they call a narcissistic appreciation. Meaning that now that we've been fighting, kind of they say fighters do this, is that now that we've fought and I see that your skills can match my skills and I see a lot of me in you and I respect you and appreciate you. Okay? Good. Giving feedback to others. We'll come back to that shortly. Sharing responsibility and making decisions starts to happen here in the norming stage. Is anybody on your team or your organization currently in the norming stage? Okay? Good. Good. You made it through the storm. Okay? Questions asked there? What kind of relationships can we develop? As we said, anytime we're going to have success, it's about the people. It's about the relationships. Can I cause people to understand that I'm committed to their success, that I have a vested interest in them personally doing well? Because the better they do, the more the team will succeed. Okay? We will be successful as a team. How do we measure up to other teams? They say about high-performance teams, they like to engage in others, with other high-performance teams, to find out how good we actually are. When we have competition, when the awards are given out, how well are we performing? What is my relationship to the team leader? Okay? Because sometimes that relationship is adversarial. And when it's adversarial, it's almost that we're just keeping our eyes on each other. I'm keeping my enemy close. Okay? And so what it takes is for a leader to be able to engage and spend more time with those who they think may be adversarial. We saw that in the year, I believe it was 1912, where Great Britain and Norway raced to the South Pole. And Norway blew them away in terms of doing this, even though the British just knew that they were going to win. The thing that the Norwegians had together was their leader understood that when I have people that are withdrawing, when I have individuals who don't want to be a part of the team, that I understand that in this environment, if we don't stick together, we will die. Therefore, I will share in their duties and I'll share in their chores as a way to utilize proxemics to cause them to begin to open up and talk to me. When I say proxemics, that's the study of human behavior with regard to distance, right? That's why when people are upset with one another, they avoid each other, they stay far away. But if you're upset with somebody or know somebody is upset with you, stay closer to them physically. They can only take it for so long before somebody has to say something. Okay, good. And so, of course, when we get to the performing stage, in the performing stage, here we have high levels of interaction. There, the deep social bond is evident, okay? That we speak to each other, that we might even spend time together outside of work, that I'll go to your children's, baby shower, christening, and those kind of things because I care about them. We have high levels of interaction. Also increases in our performance. Good is not good enough for us anymore. We understand who we are and what we can do, and we want to keep raising the bar. Members are comfortable with each other. As we said, that social comfort is important if we're going to have accountability and if we're going to have candor. Right? That we're socially comfortable with one another because they're the people who are with you and on your team who actually care about you and you care about them. I know I'm redundant with that, but that's what this is about. Next, it says that they're confident and optimistic. The word confident in it has the word confide, that I'm confiding in myself. You have to hold on to your confidence. Once we have social comfort, that's when people become more confident because they feel safe with the people who they're speaking with and the people they're interacting with. You ever seen any cases of road rage? With road rage, those people feel safe as long as they're in their car. And so they say and do things that they wouldn't do if they were standing on the street in front of the person. Okay? So when it comes to social comfort, when your team feels safe and comfortable, then they'll go further, they'll say more, and they'll contribute, and then we'll be able to get some of the innovation that we're looking for on our teams. Good. So on the performing teams, they can define tasks. They can work out their relationships successfully. They can manage their conflicts, and they can work together to accomplish their mission. Okay? Really quickly, I won't spend a lot of time on this, but with dysfunctional team behaviors, and I'm sure you've seen all of these in one way, shape, or form. One of them that we see here is condescending. This is a no-no, okay? Because when it comes to condescension, a lot of that is based on my own insecurity. And so I want to condescend in my language or my tonality when I speak to somebody because I want to feel better at somebody else's expense. Okay? If I'm condescending, what it really means is that I need to go back to the drawing board and figure out where I'm coming short. Okay? Next, bullying. Hot topic these days. And we utilize it most when we talk about children and when we talk about high schools and that kind of thing. But what we're beginning to find more and more, that there's a lot of bullying taking place amongst adults in the workplace. Right. And we see it's the same thing. We knew even growing up, when you hit the bully in the mouth, they turn and cower. And that's what we mean about the candor and accountability. Why are we allowing them to do that? How come nobody said anything to them? Okay? You have to stop the bully if you want your team to succeed. Blocking means blocking agendas. One place we see this most is in DC. We won't talk about that. Okay? Avoiding, as we said, which becomes childish. It's just that I don't want to deal with somebody, so I'll just go the other way. I start redirecting even my route to my office. I'll just walk all the way around the building, even though I know it's a whole lot further because I don't want to deal with so-and-so. Okay? We have to step up and have those crucial confrontations and be able to move forward as a team, because how many of you know the more time that we avoid, the more intense that whole situation becomes? We make mountains out of molehills because we've allowed our minds to feed more and more into what we think is going on. Just because you think somebody disrespected you doesn't mean that that was their intention. And you don't find out until you ask them. Right? Okay, good. Withdrawing, we talked about. Joking. How many of you know the difference between joking and a maliciously designed comment to make fun of somebody at their expense? When we have deep social bonds and we have that social comfort, then we know what we can say and what we can do with one another. However, there is a difference when we begin to joke at somebody else's expense. Another form of bullying. Okay? Dominating, also self-seeking. We all know the self-seeker. Okay? Good. And so some of the responses that we have to dysfunctional behavior, first thing is we want to provide counseling for that individual, one-on-one, is to go and talk to them and say, hey, this is not going to work out. These are our team dynamics. This is how we function and how we flow. Either you get with the program or you don't. Next, we confront the individual. We go by ourselves, then we go with the team. Hey, we need to have almost an intervention with you. Do you still want to remain a member of this team? Because what you're doing is not okay. Sometimes when you're dealing with the bully and the joker and the dominating individual, they're good one-on-one, but they're not so good when they have to confront a group. It's important to stay a team. If they still don't conform to the group's norms, then we have to ask them to leave. And some people, their idea or their mentality is that, well, you guys will never be able to do it without me. If you've ever tried that in your life, you've probably been disappointed to find out that they went on just fine without you, didn't they? Right? Okay, good. So, communication barriers. When you talk about communication barriers, one of the key contributors to, according to Forbes magazine, is they said that one of the key things that a leader must be able to do is effectively communicate. And the first thing on their list with effective communication was minding the say-do gap. What is the say-do gap? Yeah, what I say is what I do. And what I do is what I say. Because communication isn't always verbal, is it? Right? We understand that there's body language. We understand that even trees communicate to us. When they start to turn colors, what are they telling us? Right, that the seasons are changing. If dogs are barking at us, what are they telling us? Right, back up. If the rattlesnake's rattle is rattling, what is he telling us? Everything is communicating, and so the first thing or form of communication that you have is your behavior. Right, before you open your mouth, the things that you are doing is saying more to the people who are on your team than anything you might ever say. And if your words are not congruent with your actions, you're done. You're done. Because there's something within each human being that really, really hates hypocrisy. Something about you telling me to do something and you're not doing it yourself. Where you're not delegating to me, you're dumping. That's a problem. Okay? Good. And so the other side of communication is the feedback, giving feedback. Feedback, when you receive it, your only answer should be thank you. That's it. Thank you. Many times, this is where defensiveness comes in. Somebody gives you feedback because they actually care about your success, or they see something that's not right and they have some feedback on how it can be better, or a problem or situation that you might be able to avoid. And so your only answer should be thank you. Sometimes people say, oh, that's not me, I didn't do that. Thank you that you took the time to watch and to notice and give me that feedback. Now, the analysis of the data I own. If I want to incorporate what you said, I will. If I don't, I won't. So I might take what you've said and bounce it off a few other people and come back to you and say, yeah, that was right. Thank you again for that feedback. Feedback is extremely important in teams. How many times have you watched a team member doing something or putting something together and you know that's not going to work, or doing something that you know is not going to be beneficial for them and you said nothing? Right. Feedback. Candor and accountability. Good. So some causes of team conflict, we know that there's the personality differences. That's in every single scenario. We see that no matter what the team or the organization is. Even the most holy of organizations, the churches and temples and mosques, will have these issues with the personality differences. If you're familiar with Myers-Briggs or the David Kiersey temperament sorter, or even Plato's stuff from antiquity, you see the personality differences are different in everybody's life. The people are born with a certain temperament, character. Okay? Then there's values difference. You have people who are on the team for different reasons. Some people it's for a paycheck. Some people it's for recognition. Some people it's because it's legacy. You know, their father, their mother was in this organization, so they're doing it too. And you'd be surprised to find out why people are on your team, and you need to take the time to ask. Differences in perspective, right? Differences in goals, also cultural differences. Do cultural differences play a role in our teams? Yes, they do. You can say it. And so it's important to understand that they do, because if I care about your success, then I'm willing to open myself to find out more about your culture and how you function and what's going to cause you to, how I can put you in the best place to score, right? As a Laker fan, of course, I like Magic Johnson. What they used to say about Magic is that, hey, if you're running the lanes, James Worthy and Byron, just put your hands up because he'll find you in the right spot. And so the thing is, as a team leader, you got to be able to find your people in the right spots. It's going to allow them to be able to score when they get the ball. Right? Okay? Good. And so when we have these team conflicts, there's certain strategies that are in existence. Some people like to say there is a one-size-fits-all, but there's not. Different situations call for different strategies that you might put into place. First, when there's competition. Only time that you're going to use competition, this is not the best strategy, however, there is a time and a place for it, is that when quick action is necessary. We need to get something done. When an unpopular action must be implemented. Anybody have to implement something that was unpopular with the team? All the time. Okay? That's conflict. And so now we're competing with ideas and comparing wits and those kind of things. When you know